It's definitely fair to be scared of modeling because I'm still kind of scared of certain aspects of modeling. I'm not a good like subdivision, like box modeler. I usually try and get by with the volume builder or like extrude NURBs or sweep NURBs or different kinds of deformers. Like whatever works just to achieve the division that I have works, and then I just try and not focus on the technical aspects. But yeah, we can definitely take a look at how we modeled some of these elements. And I'll start with this table layout scene that kind of goes throughout the short. I can show you something that I personally really like to do instead of going the box modeling route. So I really love using extrude NURBs, for example. But the only issue with that is that if you're using splines through an extrude NURBs, you might not get the smoothest edges around the caps, regardless of how many sections you're using on that cap. So I have this like small little trick that I really enjoy using when I'm modeling. So for example, for this cutting board is where I use that. So as you can tell, this cutting board has a very like smooth corner, smooth edge and everything, but it still has a very graphic shape, which is what I wanted. So I'm just going to go ahead and display our lines here so we can see our topology. And I'm going to go ahead and deactivate this subdivision surface. So this is how the actual extrude NURBs looks. And usually with splines, the default is the adaptive intermediate sampling, which just means that I guess it just means that the cinema places out points along the spline where it's necessary. So, for example, the rounded corners. But if you're doing this, you're not going to get like even topology around the edges and that kind of stuff, which is usually what you want when you want to smooth objects out in cinema. So if you just hit uniform, you can decide how many points cinema will distribute along the spline uniformly. So I've set this to 40 because then I get like a good rounding around the corner for this shopping board. And in the extrude NURBs, the default setting here is usually the n-gon, which means that it will not have any geometry on the flat surface of the extrude NURBs. And if I would go ahead and smooth this out, you would get this, which is a visual nightmare. you do not want this if you want a smooth surface. So if you instead, I'll just go ahead and deactivate this again. If you go to regular grid, you can decide the size of the quads, and you actually also have to hit quad dominance, so to make sure that you're getting the quads and not the triangles. And I've set this to, I think it was 1.3, yeah. So I've set it to a value where I'm getting the least amount of like triangles forming around the edges here. Like you're still going to get some, but it's not going to matter too much. And if I go ahead and smooth this with a subdivision surface, you're getting a completely smooth shape, but you can also go ahead and just adjust the radius if you would need to with a pretty good like geometry. So you're keeping things very open and very, just open for changes, really, which is usually how I like to work, because I don't want to just create a box model that's just finished as it is. I want to be able to change it if my creative vision like needs for it. So that's kind of a neat trick. But like on top of that, there are moments where you do need probably to get into like proper subdivision modeling. So for example, this spoon here, like I wouldn't be able to get, the height here, the height difference here along the edge of the spoon, or to get this hole to work nicely in a smoothed out way. So in some cases, you do need to kind of get into some form of box modeling. However, in this case, like this is, I'm not great at it, which means that it's going to look garbage once I unclick the subdivision surface. So this is how the spoon looks. But I mean, like this works, and you can already see where the box originates from. So this is like the original box, and then you just kind of shape these things out in the top view initially, and you kind of just add these like height differences. So this is, I probably just took this and like pulled this up just to kind of get the difference in height. Then you just extrude this handle out, and I wanted just this like a bit more of a detail around the handle. So adding a hole to it, I thought could be just a nice touch. But I wasn't sure how to add holes in like a box modeling, because in extrude NURBS, you would just use like a spline mask, and then you would subtract it like you would do in Illustrator or anything like that. But in box modeling, it's just it's a bit more complicated. But making a hole out of a box, it's actually not too hard. But just to kind of show you how you create a hole, which is super simple, I'll just go ahead and solo this into view just so we can see the bottom of the spoon as well. So if I go ahead and select both of these, I can just go ahead and hop down to extrude inner. So that will kind of create these faces for us to extrude the hole. So one of the principles of like subdivision modeling is that we're trying to get even amounts and even shaped amounts of quads. So you don't want triangles, you want quad shapes to get a nice smooth surface. So we have a 4-pointed square here, like around the entire shape, which is what you need. So if I just go ahead and delete both of these, you can see that we're kind of almost there. So the only thing you need to do then is hit bridge, and then just go over to your edges, and then you can just pull these down. And like now you have a hole to your shape. Yeah, and once it's smooth, like you get that. And that's it. You don't need to be like an expert at this, but it's definitely useful to know the basic principles. And the basic principle is usually just to like keep quads. Like that's what you want. You don't want triangles, because then you will get the pinching and the uneven geometry and that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's sort of as simple as that.